Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We truly appreciate it. Today we have an awesome conversation with singer-songwriter Flo Chase. He currently lives in the United States, but he's had quite the journey to get there. He grew up in New Caledonia, just off the coast of Australia. At the age of 12, he moved into Queensland, Australia with his family so that he and his brother and sister would have more opportunity. At the age of 18, he moved to Sydney with his brother to pursue music. And after honing his craft there a few years, he decided to move to America, where he's been living for the past 3 years, writing and recording his new album, Toi. So please enjoy our conversation with Flo Chase. I think I pieced it together. You've moved around, done a lot of stuff. So I was kind of looking at different interviews and stuff to try and piece it all together. So I think I've done that. So
You're back on the map again. Where have I been?
yeah, exactly. So let's start out in your younger years. You're born in France, of course, but moved to New Caledonia when you were 1. Now, why did your parents move there?
I think it was for work. My dad got a job here, and they've also had the travel bug. They've always been traveling around. Yeah.
It's a beautiful place there. I'm sure a lot of people look on it as like a very tropical, romantic location where you would basically go to vacation. But living there, did you get that vibe, or because you were living there, was it just another place?
It was probably just another place, but like looking back at it today, I'm super grateful for being there at an early age. And I'm also glad that we moved there when I was 12, because it is really small. So like during these years growing up where you get to be outside instead of like living in a city, I'm super grateful for like being in nature, being by the ocean. But I'm
Right.
also glad that we moved out because there's in terms of like, especially for music opportunities and stuff, it's quite limited. So
Right. And back in those younger years, I read that music was a part of the household. It wasn't necessarily, I can't remember if your parents played.
yeah.
Yes, they both play the guitar, right?
Yeah, both my parents played the guitar a little bit. So it was more in the household. Like they used to play records all the time. Like I grew up listening to music and they would play guitar. But I
Oh,
think they
okay.
played it more in their younger years. I don't remember seeing my parents playing that much guitar. It was more like on the weekend, really occasionally.
And how did that music around the house, like you were saying, Simon and Garfunkel, Neil Young, the Beatles, that type of
Yeah,
classic American rock, how did that influence you at a young age?
it's funny. I think I only realized it later because when I really got into songwriting and music myself, sort of my inspirations were that type of sound. So I think obviously I got used to it growing up. So I found myself still listening to that style of music, and I was sort of wondering how come am I like gravitated towards that genre because was a little more mature than I guess when I was 15. Most of my friends weren't necessarily listening to that style of music, and
Right.
that's when I realized that it's most likely what I've been listening to when I was really young. Yeah.
And when you were 10 was when you started to pick up the guitar. Was that because of your parents, or what kind of spurred you to pick it up at that age?
That was my parents was guitar and me. My parents first put me into piano lessons when I was 7.
Okay.
Uh, but I stopped. I played for 3 years. I was more of a sport kid. I played a lot of golf and tennis growing up. But at age 10, my parents asked me if I was willing to take up guitar since I wasn't playing any more piano. And I thought, yeah, I'm actually down to try guitar. This seems pretty cool. Yeah,
So it was more of a recreational thing at that point, then, just to give you something to do outside of sports.
exactly. Yeah.
And then, so at 12 is when you moved into Australia,
Yeah.
into Noosa, was it?
Yeah, exactly. Nusa. Yeah.
Okay. And so was that again for your parents' work, or was that them realizing at 12 for you and your siblings, you were needing more opportunity?
Exactly. That's exactly what it was, especially language wise. We didn't speak a word of English, and I thought it would be obviously a great opportunity for us to to learn to speak English at 12 is much easier than when you're older.
Right.
So yeah,
And looking back, how thankful are you that they did that?
like I feel every time I look back at it, I'm like, I not only feel like super stupid for being annoying at the time because I obviously had my friends and I was giving my parents a hard time. Like, I don't want to go. And today, Australia feels like home. Like, as much as New Caledonia feels like home too, but I don't know. There's something about Australia feels very special to me.
And so do you have family dispersed around the different areas that you've lived at this point then?
Exactly. I have my sister and my nephews. They're still in Noosa. My parents are currently in New Caledonia, but they travel back and forth. And I moved out to the States with my brother, and he's currently in Arizona. So we're all over the place.
Wow. And so that has influenced your music a lot, and we'll talk about that. But let's talk about when you were 15 and you started singing.
Yeah.
What brought that on? Was that the point where you were thinking about getting more serious into music?
Actually, my mom wanted me to sing for a while. Same thing. When I was 10, we used to sing in the car, and she was like, "You should take up singing lessons. You got a good voice." But once again, I was a bit of a sport, like a bad kid, and whatever mom asked me to do, I didn't want to do it. But at 15, actually, one of my friends back in high school, he was taking vocal lessons, and he was like, "You should take up vocal lessons. It's really good for you and stuff." So I was like, "I'll go give it a shot." And luckily, the teacher, I guess, was my first singing teacher. I still get coached by today. She was amazing. She truly inspired me to take it up. And I was already playing more guitar back then, and that's sort of when I started really getting into songwriting. I sort of fell more in love with music is when I took up singing. Yeah.
Right. And so back then you were doing both sports and music. Was there a difference in the feeling that you got from each of those? Like a difference in the feeling when you were playing sports or when you were playing music?
For sure. I think sport was more like a way for me to go catch up with my friends. And I was playing a lot of tennis at the time. So it was almost like a social thing as much as it was I guess, a competition as well. Well, music was more a way for me to express my feelings and express myself. I was pretty shy growing up. And I think the language barrier, like at 15, my English was becoming pretty solid, but it was still a little rough.
Right.
So I found music and writing songs was a way for me to express myself. While sport, it still is, I guess, you do express yourself through sport, but not necessarily as emotionally based.
And back then when you started writing, was it very emotional as well, the same way it is these days?
The first songs were pretty bad, but they were emotional. Definitely not the songs I'm most proud of. But yeah, for sure. I think I started with a lot of sad songs. It took me a while to get into brighter, happier songs. Yeah.
But even though they were sad, was that sort of a good thing because it was allowing you to release that sadness? Because, like you say, you maybe didn't feel as accepted at that age with the language barrier and stuff. So, did that allow you to get that out rather than holding it in?
100% for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It was a place of comfort for me as much as I was writing sad songs. It was basically a place of comfort where I was allowing myself to express those feelings, basically.
And do you remember, did it give you more confidence?
I'm sure it did, for sure. Yeah. I was also pretty, I don't know, actually, back then. I was still pretty shy and nervous about music, but I'm sure it gave me some type of confidence. Yeah.
Let's move ahead to when you're 18, and that's when you moved to Sydney. Did your whole family move to Sydney, or was that just you moving to pursue music more?
Yeah. So that was just me and my brother. We were both studying science at the time. My goal was to become a vet at first. So
Oh,
music
okay.
was really came later that I decided to make it I guess, a full-time job. But my brother was studying sports science. I was into clinical exercise science. I think I was 2 years into my degree, and we came across this ad. Well, I was getting more into songwriting myself, but we came across this. The school was called JNC Academy, and they had a course that my brother did was about audio engineering and sound production, and one was performance. And at the time, I got into YouTube, and my brother was recording my covers or my originals and making the videos for them.
Right.
Thought, as much as we love science, why don't we just go there and give music a shot? Because we do science like during the day, but every weekend that we have, we spend it recording videos, recording music. So we both decided to pack our bags and we moved to Sydney together, which definitely helped me move as well. It definitely would have been a different experience if I was on my own.
Before you moved in 2011, you took an acting class, and then in 2012 you won a modeling competition. So at that point, were you focused on modeling and acting before the music came up as wanting to do it as a career?
Not really. It was more of a side thing as well. I
Okay.
guess they're getting like most kids in Australia that tend to work at a cafe or at a store. My parents put us into a modeling and acting agency to make a little bit of money on the side. So we used to fly to Sydney for like commercials and stuff. So it was a good way for us to make a bit of money on the side. Yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
how has that helped, do you think, in your music and in your performance, having that acting training? Does it help, do you think, in portraying the emotion of the music when you're playing live?
for sure. And especially back then, I remember it helped me a lot with, I guess, confidence, being on stage, speaking to people. I used to do improv classes where you basically had to, well, obviously, improv in front of someone. So it's pretty scary at first. So it definitely helped me with confidence being on stage and obviously finding my emotions, knowing where to look to find them, basically. Yeah,
And then in 2015, you received a bachelor degree of contemporary music from the JMC Academy in Sydney. What was that experience like? Because you say you had vocal training leading into that, but doing that program, what was that like in learning sort of the professionalism behind music? Was it an eye opener for you, or was it a lot of stuff that you already knew?
I think it was still an eye opener. Some of the stuff I already knew, but it was, I guess, the as much as I love science, it was the first, I guess, area of study where I was actually opening my books every night and willing to learn without feeling like it's an effort. Like it felt, yeah, I don't know how to perfectly explain it, but yeah, we've touched on a lot of things. I already had the knowledge on music. How do you call it? Like there was a lot of music culture, music history. We obviously
Oh,
learned.
okay.
We were doing production as well, so it was a lot of different areas. So some of it I already had knowledge on, but a lot of it definitely was new. Yeah.
And how did that support you? If you hadn't have done that, do you think that you would be where you are today, or did that really help you in progressing into realizing that that is what you wanted to do as a career?
Personally, I think it really helped me. When people ask me the question, I don't think you have to go to music school to be a musician personally, but with me, it definitely helped me. I guess believing in myself that this is something I want to do and that I can do. And it also helped me with songwriting as well, because we did learn, as much as songwriting is a personal process, we did learn certain tools about songwriting. So I still use them today, like certain things to look at when I'm writing a song. Yeah.
And what was Sydney like for you, moving there, moving away from the smaller city? Because when you were in Noosa, it was a smaller place. And of course, New Caledonia being a smaller place. So moving into Sydney as an 18-year-old, what was that experience like overall? And just finally moving into a big city?
I think it was the best experience, especially because I did it with my brother. And around 18, it's like the perfect time to move to a city, for my opinion. But it was such a great experience. I think Sydney still remains one of my favorite cities that I've been to. And the whole experience was amazing, not only for music, but meeting people, even, yeah, it was just a great experience.
And then when did the idea of moving to the States really start to take hold, and you and your brother realizing that that was the path you wanted to go on and you were going to start taking the steps to make that happen?
I think I used to love America watching movies growing up already, like Hollywood. But I think it really started, like I really wanted to move there about halfway through my degree of music. Uh,
Oh, okay.
as I was finding out more about the music industry, obviously finding out more about some of my favorite artists and where they'd been. So I guess there I was like, once we finish, uh, once we both finish our degree, let's release an EP so we have something in our bag, and then let's go give America a shot.
So you recorded that EP while you were in Sydney before you left then?
Yeah, a year before I left, I released it a month before we flew out. So,
And your brother produced that record, right?
he co-produced it. I got it produced by Wayne Connolly, who's
Oh,
a great
okay.
producer. And my brother basically, we did all the demos together, and he was there in the studio helping with the creative process.
So what was that like having him there and being able to work with him in that way?
Amazing. For me, it's like almost gives me I feel more at ease when my brother's there, just because we've been working together since day one. So he knows
Right.
exactly what I like. So the fact that he was there just straight away put me more at ease. He was also capturing videos for me to put on my YouTube and stuff. So and every time I can have him there, I feel super grateful. Obviously, we're getting older and he's got other priorities. Yeah, but every time I can have him with me, I'm super happy. Yeah.
And now you came to the States. You came for what was it? A month or no, 3 weeks at
Uh,
first?
we came for 3 months at
Oh,
first.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah, 3 months. We had a few meetings lined up, but we came for 3 months hoping we would secure some type of deal so we could get a sponsorship to be able to stay. Yeah,
And what was that like? You say you had a few meetings set up, but was there a lot of door knocking? Like when you're on your way over, was there a lot of anxiety about the fact that if you didn't secure something, then you wouldn't be able to come to the States? So it was going to be a very important trip.
for sure. I think since once again we're together, we were also excited to finally go check out the States. And we were like, well, worst case, we'll go for 3 months. At least we'll experience, we'll see whether we like it over there. And we can always come back home for a little while and then work from there and then go when the right opportunity comes across. So I don't remember being too nervous. I was feeling more excited about finally going there. But there was definitely a lot of door knocking, a lot of it, and which turned out into emails because I found out knocking on a door in LA isn't necessarily the best thing to do.
Right. Yeah. There's a few people knocking on doors in LA, I imagine.
So I was more behind my computer in a hotel room sending emails and actually going to places. Yeah.
And so, how did it work out that you were able to secure something? How did that process work?
So it took, I think we came back 2 times. So we got out, then we came back for another 3 months on the ESTA tourist visa. And finally had a management company decided to take me on board. And that's how it worked out. They sponsored me, but unfortunately, the sponsorship takes a bit of time in terms of like the visa application and stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about that because you went home for a month, I think, and then decided to come back.
Yeah.
And
And
that didn't turn out so well for you.
that didn't turn out too good. But once again, it inspired me to write more music. But basically, I was working on my visa, so I went back home for a month, and we decided to go back with my brother again. And obviously, coming back 3 times on a tourist visa, the customs tend to get a little suspicious. Why are you coming back so much? Are you working in the States? And I told him, no, I'm actually waiting on my visa. It should be approved within the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping, which is why I'm coming back just to start setting things up, getting an apartment and everything. And yeah, they didn't necessarily very much like it. They told me, you're applying for an ESTA visa. Have you won a Grammy Award? I told them, no, not yet. And then I would never get it. You're going home. So they locked me in, I guess, in a room at the back. It was a horrible experience. It took about 40 hours before I got onto the next flight. I couldn't call anyone. And it was already a 15-hour flight from Sydney to LA. So when you get off a 15-hour flight, you just want to get out of the airport. But no, spent a week at the airport basically.
So, how did you recover from that? Like, for a lot of people, it would have been just like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to stay back in Sydney and play my music and grow my career there. So, what was it within you that created that drive to say, no, you know what? That's not going to stop me. I'm going to push through that.
I think it's just my overall dream, I guess, to become a successful musician. And obviously, more opportunities were coming across in LA. I'd also met a great producer at the time who co-produced this new record with me. So I was very keen to get back to the studio and record over there. And my brother was there too. So plus I think they made me a little more hungry when the guy said, if you want a Grammy, you'll never get your visa. I was like, if I get my visa and one day I win a Grammy, I'll tell. Thanks, dude. By the way, I got my Grammy and I got my visa.
Yeah, I was looking online and the O1 visa, which is like the performance visa, it actually says when you Google it, if you've won a Nobel Prize or an Academy Award, then you should be able to get it no problem.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't and I got it no problem. So knock on wood, but I've got a lot of friends who've got them too. So yeah.
That's awesome. And so when you finally arrived, that was what, 4-ish years ago?
To the yes, it was 3 years ago because exactly 3 years ago now. Yeah, because I'm
Okay.
currently renewing my visa again because it was a 3-year visa and it just expired. So
Okay. And so did you hit the ground running pretty quick in starting to create new material for the next album?
yeah, once again, I was so eager to get back, and I've been working with a guy called Houston Fry. He's basically become my best mate over there, like a second brother. He's been super kind. He's opened up the studio to me, and for the last 3 years, we've been almost in the studio every night, creating music. Yeah.
Wow. And you say that you do a lot of writing on your own because you basically do it like between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. is when you do your best writing. Is that just because your mind is sort of quiet at that time? Or is it like that there's no distraction? So your mind kind of comes alive at that point?
I think it might be a combination of both. I'm also like a night owl, so I usually have dinner at like 10 p.m. So I usually like finally sit down, everyone's gone to sleep around that time. And I also feel most inspired at that time too, because living in a big city like LA, it's usually really busy and loud, and it's so quiet during those times. And I don't know, the city lights, the like ambient city noise is also very inspiring, I find. And since my first EP, I've always felt most inspired and I guess write most of my songs between those eras. Yeah.
And what was it like getting to LA mentally? Because, like you say, it's a big city, there's a ton going on. Had you prepared yourself for that? Is it sort of similar to Sydney in the size and scope? Or was it quite an eye opener when you actually got here to live, when you had gotten all the visa stuff done and actually landed and were here for good? What was your reaction internally?
Uh, a bit of both, I guess. It is similar to Sydney, but in a much bigger extent. Like both my brother and I felt the same way about it. It's like Sydney, but with a lot of like bands that we don't necessarily find in Sydney, which comes with obviously having a bigger population size. But the traffic was crazy. I never had to like spend an entire day for one meeting in the car.
Right. And when you were writing the new album, how did the city affect that? Because I know that a lot of your writing is based on personal experiences, more with missing family and being away from family. But when it comes to the difference from your debut EP and this one, did LA form much of the creative process on this, or was it pretty similar and just sort of sticking to that personal nature of missing family and friends?
I think definitely most of it was very similar in that extent, but I'm sure like the people I met in LA and the sort of the music scene in LA is different too than Sydney. Definitely played some part in the creative process, but overall, it's definitely more about my personal experiences being away from my family and moving to a different country. But I'm sure, once again, yeah, LA has played some sort of inspiration.
And you say you write a lot on your own. So when you were taking those songs into Houston, what was that like? Because they are so personal for you and you're taking them in their rawest form. So was that a scary feeling almost because they are so personal and you're just sort of handing them over and saying, let's work with these? Or was it an exciting thing working with him?
I think it's always both. It's mostly exciting with Houston because he's one of the most positive dude I've ever met. So no matter how bad the song might be, he's gonna love it anyway. Or he's gonna do. But it's always scary, but it's also super exciting. That's been like the funnest part of making this record to me. It's like bringing those songs to their smallest form and then taking them to the studio and just building everything out.
Right.
Because Houston and I played everything on there.
Hmm.
We were all the instruments were played by us, so that was so much fun. So
And so,
yeah.
how many instruments do you play?
I want to say the ones that I feel confident on that I would play live would be guitar and piano. Then I could play some banjo as well. But
Okay.
for sessions in studio, I self-taught myself how to play drums, the bass guitar. There's some mandolin on the record as well. Recently took up saxophone, so I play a bit of everything, enough to put it in my records, but to play live, mostly guitar and piano.
So has music always come pretty natural to you? Like you say, you self-taught yourself those instruments in the studio. So has that always been something that has come naturally when you were picking up the guitar at 10 and when you were singing at 15? Was that the same, that they came pretty natural for you?
I would say, yeah, for most of them anyway, to get sort of familiar with them to some degree. It's pretty natural. I tend to do it by ear most of it. Drums was definitely if I look back on it, one that was a little harder. I actually self-taught myself how to play drums while I was studying at JMC in Sydney.
Oh, okay.
I also self-taught myself there are a lot of instruments because we got to use the rehearsal studios until midnight, and there was plenty of instruments in the room, and I thought, well, I'm paying for my studies, I may as well make up the time and learn these things while I can. So drum was a little harder, but once I got the groove of it, then it came along.
And what role did he have in this album? Because he did co-produce some of it, right?
Yeah. So he would come into the studio with us. He was mostly there for the mixing parts of things as well. Like I would always have him come in before. We'd be sending out the final mixes to the mixing engineer just to see what his thoughts are. But he was also there with the songwriting process. Obviously, Houston was the first person, the person I would take the songs to in the studio. But my brother we lived in the same apartment. So he would be the first one to hear the songs and he would tell me if this one feels good or what to change about that one. So
And how many songs did you write overall going into the album?
a lot of them, actually, there's plenty that we haven't put on there. I want to say there's 12 tracks on the record. Over those 3 years, we've probably written at least 35 songs or 40 songs. Yeah.
So, with the personal nature of the songs, is there one that really stands out for you that really resonates with you even now?
I want to say Enough is probably the one. That's the last track on the album, which is also, I think it's one of the last songs I wrote and the last song we worked on, but it also feels like the right ending for the album. It's sort of like an overall scope of what the entire thing is about. And yeah, this one still strongly resonates with me. It's basically about thanking all my loved ones for all the love that they've given me over the years and for inspiring me and giving me motivation to do what I do.
And how important is that? Because I didn't really think about that before, but the fact that your parents have been supportive with you moving away from home at 18 to go into the big city of Sydney and then supporting you to come over to America and live your dream, how important has that been?
Very important. I definitely couldn't have done it without him. So, especially because LA is pretty pretty big city and life is pretty expensive in LA. So for sure, it's been very important. And I don't know, every time they're the first ones to want to listen to the new songs, and they've always been so supportive, which I feel very grateful because yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
And you've talked about wanting to rent an RV and drive around America and perform. Is that still a goal of yours?
For sure. We actually did it from with my brother. We rented an RV from Vancouver in Canada, and we drove down all the way back to LA. We
Oh,
played a
okay.
couple, but the goal would be to go on a full tour and get into an RV. Hopefully soon. Right now it's a little crazy, but hopefully soon. Yeah.
And what is that like releasing your debut American album during this time and not necessarily being able to go out and tour it right away and just putting it out there and hoping that it hits ears and that it gets out there to the masses? Has it been a really different experience than your debut EP?
For sure, definitely. I don't think I've ever spent that much time in front of my computer ever. The last couple of weeks have been full on my computer. Everything is live streamed these days, so it's
Yeah.
definitely been very different. And I definitely miss performing the songs because there's so much about talking about the songs, but I feel people learn more about them when you actually play it to them.
Yeah.
There's a different type of connection. And you do get it in front of if you do play a live stream show, but there's something about connecting with the crowd. And,
And do you have any anxieties because the songs are so personal about how people are going to think about them personally? Like, do you want them to see it through your eyes almost and the way that you wrote the song? Or do you like the idea of people taking their own emotion from the song and their own message from it?
definitely, that's the second part is definitely more what I'm looking for. My main goal is, I'm sure, even though they're personal stories, we're all humans. We've all been through similar emotions. So whatever people are able to take from it, and if they're able to resonate from it in some type of ground, that's the goal. They don't necessarily need to know exactly what the story is for me. My goal is more for them to help them, or yeah, for them to resonate in their own way.
And how proud are you of the album and to finally have it released and to finally see all the work of the last 3 years of the work to get over here and the work to create the album and now to finally have it out?
Honestly, I still don't believe it's out today because I've been working on it for so long. It feels weird that it's out. Yeah, so I'm definitely very proud of it. I'm still mostly fully independent, so I've been involved in all the creative process, whether it's designing the mood boards for the music videos, getting the actors for the music videos. So it's definitely been a lot of work. So I've been very close to it for the last 3 years. So it feels unreal that it's out today, but I'm sure I'll realize it in a couple of days, hopefully.
And there was an interview I saw and it was in French, so I couldn't understand it, but I thought you said something about Joshua Tree. And I wanted to ask you about that because Joshua Tree is a very almost religious place for musicians in America. So was there something about that?
Yeah, you're definitely right. Nice job. I think I would. I think I must have spoken about Joshua Tree because one of my music videos was shot there, or Spinning
Oh,
Wheel
okay.
started in Joshua Tree.
So what was that experience like then?
Actually, for this video, it was pretty stressful. It was a great experience, but very stressful. Yeah, we only had 3 hours to shoot the entire thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we're flying a drone, and obviously we found out it was a no drone area. So, so it was a pretty stressful but fun experience.
Oh, that's too bad. You'll have to go back when you're less stressed and actually enjoy the area and take it all in for what it is.
For sure.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on the album. It is now I want to pronounce this right. Toi?
Spot on. It's what you say to very nice.
Well, we will look forward to that. Everyone can check out your website for the physical copies and like I say, the streaming services to listen to the album And yeah, we thank you so much and good luck in the future. And we'll look forward to when you can actually be on the road and actually get out there to perform.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much once again for joining us. And thank you to Flo for sharing his story that basically took him around the globe. Please be sure to go check out his new album, Toi, available wherever you stream your music. Please also be sure to like, share, follow, or subscribe to us on whatever streaming service you are listening on, and head over to social media. Check us out there. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Just search The Music Made Me and we should pop up. Thank you once again so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Music Made Me.